Howdy. Hey, this is Chris Decato with another Pro Tools YouTube video. Kind of poking around an old session, and this one is really old. And this video is kind of going to be about trying to salvage a really crappy drum sound. And so a little bit of history. So way back in 1993, I started working at Fish Tracks Recording Studio in downtown Portsmouth, New Hampshire. And I was brought in there by good friend Jim Tierney, who was the kind of house head engineer, chief engineer Jim Tierney. And it was a great little recording studio with ADATs and a bunch of cool mics, you know, a nice sounding room kinda, and a nice piano and an organ in there. And Jim was doing a great job of grabbing up cool gear to have in there. There was a bunch of great guitar amps and guitars, and this drum set was kind of the house kit. It was kind of a beat kit, but it was cool and it worked. And I was just kind of getting to know the room and would go in there stealing away on a Tuesday night to record whatever, just to get a clue about how the room worked and the patch bay, whatever. So lots of great history in that studio. Was there for 30 years, and I was there for the last 5 or 6 anyways, and some great friends there, and good times, great memories. And so maybe 10 years later, when I grabbed all my tapes when I left, and about 10 years ago, I transferred all that stuff into Pro Tools and kind of forgot about it. And just came across it in the last couple of months, and thought it'd be kind of fun to just try to remix some of that stuff and see how much better I can make those tracks sound now. And when I put this tune up, the first thing I noticed was, oh my God, the snare drum. And so I thought I'd share with you kind of some old school techniques along with some new attempts to try to fix a drum a track that's not happening with, when you can't replace it. I'm not just going to play it again. That's silly. So just trying to salvage a crappy drum sound. And so a couple years before I started working there, I learned from Lonnie London. There's probably a lot of people that know this technique, but just maybe a reminder of a cool old school technique is to route the snare track into a teal cabinet or a speaker aimed at the ceiling, put a snare drum on top of it, and then the speaker will set off the snare, and voila, you got a new snare drum track to record. And I'm just kind of using it to enhance the track that's already there. I think that's kind of the idea of it. It ends up sounding really pretty awful by itself, and not really usable, but it's in this instance, it's really just adding a little bit of sizzle, which is what's missing from the original track, if I could talk. So let's just listen to the snare, I guess, to start with. So here's the offender, the kind of poopy track on its own, and this is like seriously EQ'd too. Like if I turn this EQ, like I'm embarrassed actually to play this for you because it's pretty bad. Anyways, it's actually out of phase with the overheads. There's just a kick, snare, and overhead mics, and somehow the snare is out of phase with the overheads. I don't know how I did that. So, but like I said, I was just learning. But I should have known better. Anyways, so I have to give myself a little bit of leeway because I was by myself. I'm just, running out into the room, making sure levels are okay, and running back out and running back and forth anyways. So, trying to do that is tricky anyways. You're at a disadvantage in a serious way if you're trying to record yourself and you're in that kind of situation. I do it all the time now, but I'm like in the same room. You don't have to get up and move around and wearing headphones and then listening to speakers. Anyways, so the first thing I tried to do, which I've done this before successfully a bunch of times, is actually to add just a sample to it. And so that's what this track is here. If you can see my hand moving around. This purple stuff here is all MIDI. and I was just triggering a sample out of Reason, and I went through and found a trick. Tried a few different ones, and there was one that kind of worked. And to line it up, I actually like super zoomed into each and every note and lined them up by hand. If I tab through these, you can see they're all locked up tight with that little bump right there. That was my guide. And I did it with a kick drum too, to add a tone to the kick drum to try to help that track out too. But it ends up sounding like kind of like a robot or something. Here's that sample. If we, there you go, Mr. Roboto. And it's not that it's the sound isn't that great either. It's not a great snare sound. I didn't go find like some amazing one, but that's not really the point. Even it definitely is better. This is what it was. Let's turn the EQ back on. So it's not quite as horrible. And there's with that. I mean, this would totally have worked. But I was thinking about the old school technique that I learned from Lonnie. And I'm sure he learned it from somebody in Nashville, that whole speaker thing. And by itself, it's awful. I mean, it just sounds terrible. So I just routed it into my little Ampeg Jet, put a snare on it, a couple of mics. There you go. Yeah, so it doesn't sound very good. But when you add that, even when you listen to it like this, it's still pretty terrible. But it's just that little bit of sizzle. Whoops. Hold on. So that's really what was missing to me. If we play this whole and then turn these on too, it's like instantly way better. And certainly if you put it in with a track. Here we go. Here's with it out. Hold on, that sample's in there too. So it's super subtle. It's just that little. Now it's out. So it's super subtle. Let me jack it up just so you can kind of hear it. It's easy to overpower it and have too much. That was a bad clam. So back here somewhere. Yeah, so it's not like all, oh my God, wow, it's a great drum sound. It's really not. But it makes it so it's almost kind of passable, So that's kind of basically it, what I wanted to kind of share and maybe remind some folks of, the beauty of it to me is that it really captures or preserves the original, the dynamics in a way that I don't even think, like the Steven Slate plug probably does that, pretty well. I've used it before. And it's certainly on a pop track. If you're, you need that like super gunshot every time. It doesn't really matter. But in another kind of a track where there's some dynamics and ghost notes, you're gonna get all that, and that's what's so cool about it. Is it's really like an analog thing, and you can really help yourself out. So I don't know. Leave me a comment if you think I'm an idiot. I don't know. But thanks for watching, and hope to see you around.